Lara Logan is with us, and I don't want to dwell on this at all, but I couldn't help but see the ABC reporter in the crowd in Iran, wearing her headscarf and everything else, and thinking she's in real danger because those crowds can change, as you found in Egypt. How much danger was she in yesterday, and what kind of deal had to be made for her to have that kind of coverage? And is it responsible?
Well, I think it's unfair to ask if it's responsible, just in the sense that, our job as reporters is to try to tell, every side of the story. And if I was still an evening news reporter, or, CBS News foreign news reporter, I would have loved to have been on the ground in Iran and be in Martha Raddatz's shoes and be reporting from the ground. And I do have enormous respect for Martha, and I know her personally, and, I like her a lot. But having said that, I would say to you that you're right. In any crowd, in any emotional situation like that, there's always a risk, right? No question about it. But let's not forget that Iran is not the average. It's not the average country. It's not like the U.S. Everything is very carefully stage managed. Now, you always have the risk that, you could be caught up in a stampede, right? Things can boil over like that. But and there's always a risk that they allow you to be targeted. But things do not happen on the ground in countries like that most of the time without being orchestrated. Mm-hmm. So when the Iranian government says, okay, yes, you're approved and you can come in, you've got a minder with you all the time. This person is monitoring every single thing you say. We call them minders, but let's be honest, they're mukhabarat intelligence agents, right? They're spies, and they're reporting on everything you say and everything you do. And every person you speak to, every Iranian you interview, knows that person is standing right there, right? So those and sure, it was like that in Iraq under Saddam Hussein. It was like that in Syria under Assad. I've done that many times, so I'm not criticizing Martha for that. What I would say is that there's very little context. They're not giving any context in the reporting, and that's the problem that I have with this. I applaud her for being on the ground, and I applaud her for being there, and I would love to be in her shoes. But at the same time, where is that little bit of distance? What we have to do as reporters is we have to be right in that moment and be emotional and live it and bring it to life for the viewer, right, and bring you right there. But then we also have another job. Our other responsibility is to take a little step away from it and say, okay, what's the broader context? And I used to argue with U.S. soldiers all the time, right? Because contrary to what people say, I didn't live with U.S. soldiers in Iraq. I lived with Iraqi people. And when I would go to the bases with them, and they would say, well, you reporters never tell our story. You never do this, and you never do that, and you're so biased. And I would say, look, it's great that you've employed this, 50 people, and you've built this well, and there's water in the village. But what has this done to move the needle for unemployment in the country as a whole? How many Iraqis today, how many more have access to clean drinking water who didn't before? Oh, yes, they did before. In fact, the infrastructure has been destroyed, and now fewer people have it today. I used to explain to them that there's a context in which you're operating. And I have dual responsibilities to you, to the Iraqis, to the taxpayers back home, to the government that sent you here, to the military that's trying to manage these operations. All of these responsibilities compete, and they're all equal. And I have to be, try to be fair to, to everybody. So I don't just get to tell your story and not bother about the context. And that's what I feel is happening in some of the reporting that I've seen from the ground there. It's all about one perspective, and there's no real distance to it. There's no, nobody's putting it in context and saying, hey, wait a minute, wait a minute.
But
they were chanting death to America before Qassem Soleimani was
right. I understand Martha not having to add context while she's on the ground. But when I say was it responsible, I mean
some of that in there.
As much as she can get away with, yes. But back home, ABC should be saying, look, she's, we made, we made a deal. She has minders. She has people with her. So she's bringing a certain context to the, to the picture here. But they're just using it as straight reporting. Same thing with NBC last night, running state television where they were reporting 30 soldiers.
Yeah, it's just stunning. That to me is just saying, well, how about this, Glenn? Okay, how do you know that the pictures they put on state TV show what they say they show?
Right.
How do you know that? I was having conversations with various people, a couple of intelligence people. They were looking at, they were triangulating the trajectory of the, of the missiles in the air with the moon and looking at where the moon was in the past, from Iran to Iraq, because yes, there were missiles that hit that base, right? But where were they fired from? Were they fired from Iran? Were they fired from, an Iranian proxy inside Iraq? Were they fired that night? Were those pictures of the missiles being fired? Maybe those pictures were of something else. There's a lot of questions about that because the Iranian regime frequently puts out whatever it wants to. They're masters of propaganda. And what is very obvious here is, when they put that out and they did that quickly and they had people cheering there, at the launch site, that was for the people, right? That was to satisfy, because what has happened here? This is the part that, for me, the most significant thing that I think is missing here from the news coverage, where reporters have really failed in their duty.